Well, hey, hello there. Welcome to this very special online webinar. Today is all about NativeScript, and it's also all about this framework called Vue. But really, it's all about this extension to the NativeScript framework called NativeScript Vue. Now, if you're asking yourself, what is NativeScript or what is Vue? No worries, you are in the right place. Just hold tight, everything will be revealed to you today. First things first, who is this dude in the lower right corner? My name is Rob Lauer, and I manage the NativeScript developer relations team here at Progress. And with that, I think I've thrown 3 brand names at you: NativeScript, Vue, and Progress. Now, Progress is the company behind NativeScript. We've been around for years, and believe it or not, odds are you interact with a system that runs Progress software nearly every day of your life. And when it comes to mobility, Progress really stands here at the forefront of the mobility wave by sponsoring the development of NativeScript for your front end, providing the secure and compliant backend as a service in Kinvey, and a robust UI widget component set with Kendo UI for Vue, Angular, React, and jQuery. So before we get started, let's make sure we tackle any logistics for the day. Yes, this webinar is being recorded, and yes, it will be made available on the NativeScript channel on YouTube at some point in the coming days. But how, oh how, will you find out when it's available? Well, by following us on Twitter, of course. Follow us at NativeScript to get the absolute first taste of any and all NativeScript related news and ramblings. Likewise, if you have any questions during the webinar today, you're going to see a little Ask NativeScript hashtag at the bottom of your viewer. So use this hashtag on Twitter. You can tag any questions, and our crack team of developer advocates and engineers are going to help you out. So that's the Ask NativeScript hashtag on Twitter today. All right, so remember back when I asked if any of you were new to NativeScript. I realized there are very likely some Vue developers out here who are new to NativeScript. What you need to know right now is that NativeScript is a free and open source framework. It's Apache 2 licensed, very business friendly. You are creating truly native cross-platform mobile apps from one codebase. You're using your web skills, so JavaScript, of course, CSS for styling, and an easy XML-based markup for your UI. You are writing once and running everywhere. That means virtually 100% code sharing between iOS and Android. Maybe 100%, maybe a little less, depending on your app. We also tout up to 80% of code sharing with existing Angular or now Vue web apps. Now, Jen Looper is going to chime in on this topic today. Now, NativeScript also lets you reuse popular plugins from the Node ecosystem, iOS CocoaPods, Android jars, all without rewriting anything. And of course, NativeScript features deep integration with Angular, TypeScript, and now Vue.js. So yes, you are using your web skills to create mobile apps. But make no mistake, NativeScript is not PhoneGap. It's not Cordova. You're not running an app in a web view. You're getting full native performance, full 60 frame per second animations. Now, I know you're super impressed here by my PowerPoint animation skills, but really you can't discount the performance needs of your mobile app. So NativeScript does mean native UI, powered by JavaScript, of course, styled with CSS, same CSS you've been using for years on the web, with a friendly XML-based syntax for your markup that really resembles HTML. I like to think of it as a better version of the DOM, in fact. So we have a variety of tutorials for you on nativescript.org if you'd like to learn more. Now, if you are a NativeScript person and this Vue thing frightens and confuses you, don't be afraid, Vue is very friendly. Vue is also free and open source, MIT licensed. Vue was built to be incrementally adoptable. Now, what that means is you can use as much or as little of what Vue provides. And in the Vue world, components are really just reusable Vue instances, so it's easy to create reusable or shareable components for your apps. Vue.js itself is very lightweight, weighing in at a whopping 20 kilobytes, I believe. There's also a vast ecosystem of supporting libraries and utilities. And it's interesting because some AngularJS, remember this is Angular v1, these AngularJS developers are migrating to Vue as an alternative to Angular due to the similarities those two frameworks share. And last but not least, all of us jQuery holdouts, myself included, they're really seeing Vue as an easy bridge to modern JavaScript development versus, say, a React or an Angular. So NativeScript Vue comes here to merge these two worlds together and really creates this virtual utopia for app developers, right? And looking back at the history of Vue and NativeScript Vue, Vue.js was birthed, for lack of a better term, by Evan You back in 2014. The next 2 years saw really explosive growth in the framework itself. And with 2.0 removing any DOM dependencies and really making it a viable candidate for NativeScript, similar to Angular. Now, NativeScript Vue was started almost exactly a year ago, with the official 1.0 happening back in February, I believe. So we are actually at 1.3.1 today, if I'm not mistaken. Now, Vue developers, you should be right at home with the syntax required to create a native mobile app with NativeScript. You'll note the methods and template objects here, same as with a web-based project. The obvious difference here is that your template is no longer web-based, but rather uses this XML syntax to leverage truly native cross-platform UI. All right, so before we kick things off with our speakers, I did want to bring NativeScript Sidekick into the conversation. As many of you know, Sidekick is commonly used as your development companion when managing plugins, adding new views, creating builds locally or in the cloud, managing image assets, app store publishing, and app templates. Whew, that is a lot. Now, just a couple weeks ago, we did introduce something new to Sidekick, and that has everything to do with making it easier for you to wire up your app to an enterprise authentication system. If you've done this before, you know it kind of sucks. So think along the lines of leveraging SAML, OpenID Connect, or OAuth 2 protocols to interface with your organization's single sign-on infrastructure. So we make this a much easier process for you and remove most, probably not all, but most of the pain. Now this is all available for free within NativeScript Sidekick. To access it, you just create a new app based on this enterprise auth template. Try it out and let us know how it goes. All right, finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention a little party we are throwing in Boston coming up at the end of May. So Progress Next takes place in Boston from May 29th to June 1st. Come check it out, meet with all your favorite NativeScript personalities, including the entire developer relations team, engineering, product management, and more. Learn more about it at progress.com/next. All right, let me introduce our speakers. So coming up today, we have TJ Van Tol, who is a principal developer advocate here at Progress. We also have Jen Looper, our senior developer advocate here, who is also a co-creator of Vue Vixens, which you'll definitely be hearing a lot about. Finally, we have NativeScript Vue creator himself, Igor Rangelovic. All right, TJ, I think with that, I'm going to let you take it away.
Perfect. Thanks, Rob. I'm TJ from the NativeScript team, and today I'm going to show you how to actually get started using NativeScript Vue. Now, first things first, you have two options for developing Vue apps with NativeScript. NativeScript Playground, NativeScript's browser-based development tool, or a local command line or terminal environment. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to show you each of these environments in turn, and we'll start with NativeScript Playground. NativeScript Playground is, simply put, a place where you can build mobile applications in your browser without having to worry about the potentially messy iOS or Android local setup. And all of that really makes Playground a perfect spot for getting started, especially if you're just trying things out, just tinkering with the technology. The way Playground works is you write your source code in the browser, and you actually see your app running on your physical iOS or Android device. Now, this is a little bit easier to see in action, so let's go ahead and switch over to the browser. To try NativeScript Playground, all you need to do is visit play.nativescript.org, which is where I'm at here. Playground currently does default to an Angular-based app, which is what you're seeing here. So you'll want to make sure to click the New and the Vue button down here to switch over to a Vue-based application. After that, you'll want to click this QR code button, which pops up this dialog here. To read this QR code, you're going to need to download two apps to your iOS or Android device. One is called NativeScript Playground, and the other is called NativeScript Preview. NativeScript Playground basically acts as a QR code scanner. It's the thing that actually is going to read the QR code you see here. NativeScript Preview is your app runner. It's the thing that actually takes the code that you're writing in your browser, interprets it, and shows it to you on your device. So what I did is I brought over this is my device mirror over here, and I'm going to open the Playground app and scan the QR code in the browser. After scanning the QR code, you essentially have linked the code you're writing in your browser to the app you see rendered on your device. And once you can do that, you can just start coding. So for example, if I just start getting creative with my action bar title here, as soon as I save that change, you can see that it automatically gets pushed out to my devices. And I should also mention that even though I'm showing one device here, you could absolutely connect multiple devices. I could bust out some Angular devices I have over there, get out some iPads and such, and start just testing on multiple devices simultaneously. And actually, it's kind of cool to do that. Once you have this workflow down, a good next step for exploring what NativeScript Vue can do is by checking out these components on the left-hand side of the screen. What you can do is just take these things and just drag them directly into your application. So, for example, suppose I want to know how a slider works in NativeScript Vue. I can just drag this component over and actually see it rendered on my devices. Now, these components range from relatively simple UI components, things like buttons, sliders, text views, and things like that, to some really complex controls that NativeScript offers. For example, let's say I just want to put a line chart directly above this slider. If I just paste this in and save my file, I see a line chart on my device just like that. Now, it's worth taking a second to think about how cool this workflow actually is. Remember, the app you see running over here, this isn't a web app. This isn't Vue controlling some DOM elements and some DOM nodes to draw these controls. This is a native iOS application, and these are native iOS user interface controls being rendered. And remember, what's cool about this is that you're actually building and controlling this using JavaScript and using Vue.js, which I think is pretty cool. Overall, Playground is a great environment for getting started with NativeScript development. And in fact, if you want to multitask during this video, you could head to play.nativescript.org right now and start tinkering around and seeing what you can build. Now, Playground is great for getting started, but it's not without its limitations. Because Playground is browser-based, you don't have the ability to work with certain local build tools, things like Webpack. And eventually you will need to set up a local environment just to compile your applications for the iOS App Store and for Google Play. So let's look at how to set up that local environment next. Now, I will start with a little bit of a warning. Setting up a local environment can be a little bit of work, especially if you are new to mobile development. The first thing you want to do is head to docs.nativescript.org, which is the NativeScript documentation homepage, and find this installation link on the side of the screen. This is the NativeScript installation guide, which will take you through the steps you need to do to set up a local NativeScript development environment. You'll need to go through these instructions as a first step. When you're ready, head to your command prompt or terminal. If you have NativeScript installed successfully, you should have a TNS command available for working with your NativeScript apps. When you're ready, head to your command prompt or terminal. If you have NativeScript installed successfully, you should have a TNS command available for working with NativeScript applications. Next, you need to install the Vue CLI, which you can do with npm install -g for global, @vue/CLI for the Vue CLI, then @vue/CLI-init to get the init command from the Vue CLI.
A few moments later.
After the installation completes, you'll have a Vue command that you can use to start NativeScript Vue applications. Specifically, you'll need to use Vue init. You need to pass it the name of the NativeScript Vue template, which is this string here. And then you need to give your app a name. I'm going to call this one just Hello Vue for simplicity. Now, when you do this, the CLI is going to, first of all, download this template and then prompt you for a few initialization questions. Now, this is something that you can configure yourself if you'd like, but I'm just going to hit enter and accept all the defaults just to keep this moving a little bit quickly. From there, let's cd into this new app and click and type npm install to install all of these applications dependencies. And after that completes, really all of our setup is complete. The last thing we need to do is actually run our apps, which you can do with the npm run watch command. Now, you can pass this command either :Android or :iOS to run your app on a specific platform. Now, in my case, let me grab these over here. I have an iOS simulator and where it is here, an Android virtual device already running. So I'm going to run watch without any parameters because I actually want to deploy to both devices, and I'm going to run that. Now, this command will take a minute, as under the hood, NativeScript is really just building a completely native iOS and Android application package, and pushing each of those out to their emulated devices, respectively. When it's done, you'll see apps that look like this. And from here, you're really ready to start developing. So what you want to do is go ahead and open your project up in your text editor or IDE of choice. So I'll stack these emulators here and bring over my emulator of choice, which is Visual Studio Code. And what I'll do is I'll make an update to this app. So maybe I'll again just change the action bar title here, Hello World. Let's again put a change in there and go ahead and save that file. Now, if I go back to the terminal here, as you can see, much like working in NativeScript Playground, there is a watcher here happening locally in this environment that's going to detect this change to my .vue file, run this through Webpack, and actually push that change out to my devices. There is Android, and here comes iOS. And really, that's about it. At this point, you're developing just like you were working on any normal Vue.js application, except you're now leveraging NativeScript to use Vue and use some of these NativeScript user interface components to build completely native Android and iOS applications. So to recap, you have two main ways of developing NativeScript Vue applications. NativeScript Playground, which lets you start coding in a browser without having to go through the full local Android and iOS setup, and using the Vue CLI in a command line based environment, which really lets you leverage everything that Vue and NativeScript have to offer. So go ahead and give it a shot. If you're a good multitasker, like I said, go ahead and head to play.nativescript.org right now and start tinkering and building your apps as you're watching this video. So hopefully you've gotten some good tips on how to get started with NativeScript Vue. But to talk about the next steps and maybe how to build something that's more at real world scale, I'm going to toss things over to my colleague Jen Looper, who's going to talk about a NativeScript Vue app that she's been working on. Jen, you want to take it from here?
Thanks, TJ. It's great to see how easy it is to get started with NativeScript and Vue. So my name is Jen Looper, and I'm a senior developer advocate here at Progress. And it's important for my segment of this webinar to just underline that I'm actually an ex-French teacher. By training, I should be actually in the classroom right now teaching medieval French, but you know, life comes at you fast, and here I am doing technical webinars, workshops, and other kinds of content development about NativeScript and NativeScript Vue. So I'm also the co-founder of the Wellesley Chinese Language School in my hometown, and this is just to give you an idea and a little bit of background for the app that I developed that I'd like to talk about today. But before I start that segment, I'd actually like to give a special shout out to any Vue Vixens out there, any foxy, feisty, and untamed people who identify as women and who love Vue.js as much as I do. So I created this program a couple of months ago, and it's just taking off like crazy. So if you haven't heard of Vue Vixens, visit us at vuevixens.org to learn about our program. So we're modeled after similar programs like Django Girls and NG Girls, and we provide several services to the Vue.js community. So first, we partner with conferences to provide free full-day workshops to foxy people who identify as women. And these workshops will usually occur after the main conference day. And this allows new developers to be partnered with mentors who are drawn from conference speakers and staff. And during that day, we'll be building an e-commerce type app on the web for about 3/4 of the day. And then we'll move to the NativeScript Playground to build a NativeScript Vue app for the remainder of the day. And another type of activity we're going to be doing are mini workshops that can be used for breakfasts or for lunch and learn sessions like the one I'm showing here on the screen. And we're busy working with the community to build new and fun tutorials for everyone. And also, finally, we do work with conferences to help manage their diversity initiatives. We helped with the Vue US conference to select these scholarship recipients for free tickets to the conference. And we're delighted to be able to help new people, enter into the community and find their skulk. A group of foxes is called a skulk. So, like we like to say, you can skulk with us. So for today, I'd like to tell you about a real-life use case for NativeScript Vue that I basically completed in February, and I've been improving upon it and rebuilding it as the project matures. And this is an app that I call Elocute for obvious reasons. It's an app for elocution, and it's really cute. So in this segment of the webinar, I'd like to show you how I built this very cute app for language teachers and for their students. So as a former language teacher trained to teach French language and literature, it always struck me that accent perfection is one of the big pain points for students, both for students to gain proficiency and for teachers to be able to analyze their students' progress. So the idea behind Elocute is that it's an app for second language acquisition that makes the old school language lab basically obsolete. So there's no more clunky earphones and those weird cubes that you had to sit in and this long delay in getting feedback and results. So first, on the web, a teacher logs in and creates classrooms. For example, French 101, Italian 101. And then they invite students who are already registered in the mobile app to enter into that classroom. So that's kind of their student roster. And finally, they add assignments to their classrooms. So these assignments are simply texts in the language of choice, the language being taught, designed to be spoken aloud. Now on the mobile app, the student really only needs a mobile device. They're going to log into Elocute, to the mobile app. They're going to pick up their assignment according to their classroom, and they're going to just use the speech-to-text plugin that is integrated with this app, and they're going to be able to just speak out slowly and clearly their assignment. And then there's an algorithm that runs in the background, and that gives them a score, measuring the accuracy between what the teacher has written and what you just spoke that the plugin has transcribed for you. So let's do a little demo of how this works. So I've already logged in, and here I'm presented with my classrooms that I'm enrolled in. I'm taking a lot of classrooms here, but I'm going to jump into my French 1 classroom and get my assignments. So I have a couple here, but I'm going to do the tongue twister. So what I'm going to do is press the start button and just speak this with all the punctuation properly done. Let's see if I can get 100%. Okay, here we go. Je suis ce que je suis, virgule, et si je suis ce que je suis, virgule, qu'est-ce que je suis, point d'interrogation. Let's get my score, 99%. So let's talk about the tooling that I used and the help that I had to build the mobile app and the web app. And luckily I had a groceries template by Tiago Alves. So this is the groceries demo app. It's kind of the standard NativeScript app built with Vue. You can take a look at this app. There's a lot of terrific sample code in there. And so the special little touches that I used for the mobile app included using the Firebase plugin by Eddie Verbruggen. I used also his speech-to-text plugin, which is really a blast to use, really, really cool plugin. And then on the web, my secret sauce was the Firebase UI for login. This is a great little library you can just kind of drop into your web app and get clean social logins, very helpful. I used the Vue CLI with the Webpack flavor. And I used Vuetify, which is a fantastic material design-based library that you can use to dress up your Vue.js app. So Vuetify, strongly recommend using that on the web. And then for state management on both of these apps, I used Vuex, which is Vue's state management library. Another terrific, terrific library, and helped immensely in kind of ramping up and getting going for both the web and for mobile. So I just want to do a quick code walkthrough of the main differences that I encountered while building for mobile and then rebuilding for web. So the main differences can kind of be determined by walking through main.js for both web and mobile. So let's do that. Now I want to go full screen just to highlight the main differences that you're going to encounter when you're building for web and building for mobile. The first one is that you always import Vue from the Vue library on the web, whereas on mobile you always import Vue from NativeScript Vue. So remember, NativeScript Vue is a custom implementation of Vue, so you need to go ahead and use that in your mobile app so that you'll have access to all the special touches that building for mobile natively obliges us to use. So that is the first big difference. Another big difference, number 2, is that on the web I always look for the element with the ID of app or whatever you want, and I start up my app this way, I inject my code this way, and I render it out on the web. Now, this is a DOM sort of technique for a DOM to manipulate the DOM and to inject your code into the DOM, but we don't have a DOM on mobile, so all we have to do here is initialize your Vue app, and then you just start. I have a little extra mounted piece here because I wanted to put a custom check-in to see if the person's logged in or not. But on mobile, all you have to do is go ahead and start up your app. There's no DOM to inject anything into. And a third big difference when you're building for web versus building for mobile is the templating. So in my web template, I'm using Vuetify here, so I have markup, semantic markup like v, card, and this is all standard HTML markup. Images, H1s, Ps, all this sort of thing that I would use as normal on the web. Whereas here's a great example of mobile markup. This is standard NativeScript layouting. We have stack layouts, grid layouts, images, labels, and all sorts of goodies here to create a nice assignment page. I even have a little activity indicator. You saw me use that when I was speaking. So considerable differences in the templating and just a few extra little pieces in your main JS that you're going to need to do to differentiate building for web and building for mobile. Let's take a look at some of the similarities between the code bases for mobile and the code bases for the web. So in this example, I have a Vuex store instantiated, and I have getters and mutations and my actions here, which query Firebase, right for the web app. And you'll notice a huge similarity in the way I do the same exact thing on the mobile app. I just use the NativeScript plugin Firebase and NativeScript Vue, but I go ahead and set my getters and my mutations, and I use my actions to query Firebase. And the code is really similar. So I was really happy to see how I would go ahead and use it almost identically between web and mobile. So Vuex, you are in good hands with Vuex on web and mobile. And the same thing holds true on routes. So here I have the routes on the web, and I just import my components. I grab Firebase, and then I use my paths here. I have a couple of guards here to make sure that I force people to authenticate before they hop in. But my routes on mobile look very, very similar. There's maybe a little secret sauce right here. On my login page on mobile, I wanted to hide my action bar, so I set a little metadata right here. But I have requires auth here that I wanted to guard away from non-authenticated users. So the similarities are striking in terms of Vuex and in terms of your router. This is pretty exciting. Now, I do want to draw your attention in this last piece to the third folder in this repo. There's web, mobile, and then there's mobile v2. So the mobile v2 app is the mobile app rewritten away from the original Webpack template that I borrowed from the grocery sample, and using the Vue CLI template that was demoed by TJ. So with not much work and a considerable improvement in the developer experience, I was able to rewrite Elocute for mobile using the Vue CLI. And you can see how in the web, you just go ahead and initialize Firebase and start that sucker right up. So I strongly recommend going ahead and using that Vue CLI template going forward. And it's a really terrific developer experience. So you can feel free to hop into this repo and look at the various permutations of this app as I build and rebuild and rebuild. So the last thing I want to talk about today is this idea that's percolating in the community that we really ought to have a great code sharing story between a great web technology like Vue and its partner, NativeScript Vue. So we have a couple of concepts in the community right now, and one of the most solid templates for creating a code sharing experience is this one by Igor, and it's a NativeScript Vue Webpack template. And you can download this off the NativeScript Vue repo, clone it, and then you're going to, in 3 terminals, actually, you're going to run the Webpack installation, and then you're going to run your mobile apps, and then you're going to run your web apps in the 3rd terminal. So it's a really cool and clean way to share your code between web and mobile, so that, for example, with Elocute, I wouldn't have to rewrite the thing over and over again and duplicate my code, but I could actually have, with one monorepo, a nice clean experience that I could kind of maintain a little bit easier. So this is kind of, coming soon and work in progress. It looks a little bit like this. I made a little demo and just screenshotted it for you here. So I have on the web types of seals, and then I just have a little list using an unordered list. And then on mobile, I have just a stack layout with a bunch of labels stacked up, and it's using the same source for data and loading in the same sort of fashion. And if you take a look at the way the code looks, it's really kind of cool. So we have two entry points. We have an entry for the web and an entry for your mobile apps. So on the web, of course, we just go ahead and require Vue, and then we have our app embedded in the template, and then we just mount all of our code to be injected into app. On native, as you would expect, we have Vue being required via NativeScript Vue. And then we have our template, which looks a little bit different here. We have a stack layout and a label. This could be trimmed down and cleaned up, but it is a little bit different templating, like always. And then we just go ahead and, instead of mount, we just start the app right here. So then in your app file, in your app single file component, you have something really clever, which is two templates. So you have a template for the web right here, and a template for native right here. On the web, we have things like H1s, H2s, and an embedded component here. And on the native, we have our stack layouts and our labels. And then we're sharing the component in between this file. So here is the image gallery component, which has, again, the template for the web, and it's using ULs and lists. And then for native, we have, the V template with a stack layout. And we're sharing the data source in between these two components. So it's a really clean and cool way to kind of oblige Webpack to really do the heavy lifting and determine which elements are going to be built for web and which for native. And then the NativeScript Vue loader is going to also participate in differentiating. So I'm kind of really excited about this kind of coming soon functionality. I think it's going to be fantastic. And if you'd like to jump on the Slack channel in the Vue room, we'll be happy to work together and make this all this kind of work in progress come into reality in the very near future. So with that, I'm going to pass the mic over to Mr. NativeScript Vue himself, Igor Rangelovich, and thank you so much for attending the webinar and for listening.
Perfect. Thank you, Jen, and hello everyone. My name is Igor, and I'm the author of NativeScript Vue, and I'm here to talk to you about the history and the future of NativeScript Vue. I'm going to go into details about how things started, how we got to where we are today, and what the future holds for us. It all began in April last year when I started playing around with the idea of making Vue work with NativeScript. I managed to get a Vue instance to control a NativeScript label, and that's how the project started. After the first commit, I spent about 2 weeks getting most of the NativeScript elements working with Vue, but then since I'm a student, I had to take a break and focus on my exams before I could slowly shift my focus back to the project. Then around September, development started again, focusing on fixing bugs and adding new features that were still missing. Then in December last year, we started focusing on documentation because we knew that in order for this project to grow, we had to have proper documentation that we could refer people to. In February, we released NativeScript Vue 1.0 live on stage at the VueConf in Amsterdam. That was really exciting, and the feedback we got was great. More and more people joined our Slack channel and started playing around with NativeScript Vue. And that's about where we are at today. There were a few new releases since the 1.0 release with small improvements. But let's talk about what the future will look like. Here is a list of some of the plans we have, including a new Webpack loader, a Vue CLI 3 plugin, improvements to routing with Vue Router, improved developer experience with Vue DevTools, 2 new builds, and more. First up is a new Webpack loader for NativeScript Vue to allow pre-compiling templates into render functions, so the application doesn't have to do it on every startup. The project is currently in progress and is available on GitHub. A Vue CLI 3 plugin to allow scaffolding a NativeScript Vue application where the Webpack magic is handled as a dependency, making it a lot easier to update to newer versions in the future. Oh, routing, yes. We know that routing is a crucial part for most mobile applications, and the current implementation of the Vue router is unstable and has lots of little issues. So we have plans to improve routing to make Vue router a viable navigation option for your NativeScript Vue applications. And finally, we are going to split the plugin into 2 builds. We'll introduce a new runtime-only build, which will not include the template compiler. This new build will primarily be used in Webpack-based projects where we can pre-compile templates using the new loader, and the benefit of having this new build is going to be mostly around the application size. And more. We have plans to improve code sharing, so you could share code between the web and your mobile applications more easily. We will work on improving the current Vue CLI template, mostly around issues that some users are facing when using Windows. So, to recap our plans, we're working on a new Webpack loader to allow pre-compiling templates into render functions, as well as allow easier code sharing, Vue CLI 3 plugin to stay in sync with the Vue ecosystem, improved router integration, improved developer experience using Vue DevTools, and 2 new builds. Thanks everyone for joining us today. I'm going to pass the mic over to Rob, and thanks again for listening.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Igor, and thank you especially for everything you've done to help NativeScript and the Vue communities over the last year. Before we continue, I did want to circle back on Jen's segment about code sharing. Just to hammer this point home, when we talk about Angular, we really have a maturing story to tell when it comes to sharing code between web and mobile. Obviously, this same story is developing for Vue. Now, one way I like to look at this is to look at the code you may be writing today with an MVC or an MV star pattern of development. Now, if you're creating a web app, you're generating your model, view, and controller. Likewise, if you're also creating a native iOS and native Android variant using these same concepts, you're writing a lot of distinct components. Well, using NativeScript and our code sharing strategies, you can literally share the same code between your web app and mobile apps, really reducing complexity and reducing your time to market. So I'm super excited to see where this takes us, especially with Vue. All right, next up we have something a bit different for you. At Vue.js Amsterdam, our own Jen Looper sat down with both Evan Yu, creator of Vue, and Igor to get their take on Vue, NativeScript, and where we are headed. So please enjoy this quick little edit of that interview.
So grateful and excited to be here at Vue Amsterdam, in the beautiful city of Amsterdam. And I'm here with the creator of Vue.js, Evan Yu. Hello. Say hi. And the author of the new NativeScript Vue integration, so NSVue, Igor Randzielovic. Yes. Oh, I got it right. This is awesome. Okay. So what I thought we could just do is talk a little bit about what Vue is. And the best person to talk about what Vue is actually its creator. So I'll pass the mic.
Thanks, Jane. So Vue is a progressive web framework. So originally Vue was only built for the web, and the first iteration of Vue was tightly coupled to the DOM, but In 2016, we released 2.0. It was a ground-up rewrite, and Vue is now a universal framework. So the core runtime uses virtual DOM and can be decoupled from the DOM, which makes it possible to render to alternative rendering targets like NativeScript. But the core of Vue itself is really a lean package with very friendly learning curve. So developers familiar with JavaScript can pick it up very easily, and allows you to get a lot of going with with a small amount of investment. But it is also powerful enough if you want to build more complex patterns and architectures on top of it. The ecosystem also provides official routers and state management libraries. So if you want to build large-scale applications, we also got you covered.
What inspired you to create Vue, and then what inspired you to write this integration? So I'll pass the mic back.
So when I first started working on Vue, I was using I was building a lot of really fast, rapid prototyping stuff, and I used some of the heavier frameworks and felt it slowed me down because it came with a lot of things I didn't need at the time. So I was thinking of building a framework for myself with some really, really small functionality focused on the core declarative rendering part of it, the templating part. And that was started as really just as an experiment. And later on, I realized it was something that other people could make use of. So I started adding more features into it and packaging it up, writing documentations, and released it as a proper open source project. And then it just grew organically. More and more people started using it, and it just happened that I created something for myself. It turns out it worked well for others. So then I felt really motivated to just keep working on it, and then it grew to what it is today.
Fantastic.
All right, thank you. So NativeScript Vue, I actually was exploring how to build mobile applications, and since I'm really used to the JavaScript stack, I was searching for solutions that use JavaScript. So the couple ecosystems that I knew, like Ionic or Cordova, PhoneGap, but they were all based on web views, and my problem with web views is it never feels like a real native application. And one day I found NativeScript, and I was browsing the docs, and I saw you could use Angular or TypeScript or just vanilla JS, and it sounded like, oh yeah, this project looks fun. But I was wondering, is there something I could do with Vue, maybe? So my first experience with NativeScript was actually just prototyping some things to hook up Vue.js to render NativeScript elements, and it all went uphill from there.
So with our NativeScript ecosystem, you can build a NativeScript app with vanilla JS or TypeScript with vanilla or Angular, and then we have this new integration with Vue. So we're just wondering if you can help an Angular developer find his or her way into the NativeScript Vue ecosystem. Where does Vue kind of fit into to these other framework ecosystems, do you think? This is kind of a large question and enters the framework wars a little bit, but we'll try to keep it clean.
So I've been asked similar questions a lot. People ask me to compare Vue to React to Angular all the time, and to be honest, like in the beginning, I myself was asking myself this question: where should Vue fit? But over time, I've started to realize web developers and JavaScript developers, this is a really, really big camp. You have probably millions of web developers around the world, and it's a very diverse group. Different developers will have their different preferences, and they come from different backgrounds as well. Developers coming from, say, used to work with Java or C# will find Angular very, very natural and intimate to adopt because all the concepts they already found in those OOP languages. But developers coming from a more traditional web development, that the classic HTML, CSS, JavaScript separation, will find Vue much easier to adopt. And then programmers who are into functional programming or interested in exploring more of the functional patterns will find React more fit their tastes better. So it's really like different camps of developers have their preferences, and they have good reasons to pick what they want to use, right? So I think it's also cool for NativeScript to be able to support different groups of developers in that regard.
Now, you just got done with your keynote where you talked a little bit about the roadmap going forward. I wonder where you see Vue going in the next year, in this coming year.
So I think we're in a pretty stable stage right now. We released 2.0 a bit over a year ago, and so far we haven't really seen any major reason to bring like big breaking changes to the API. So want to let people build on the current API for a quite stable period of time and focus on making incremental improvements, internal refactors, just making it faster, making it better along the way. But one of the big things we plan to do is the 2.6 next branch, which will be upgrading the code base to use modern ES 2015 and drop support for some of the older browsers, and then rewrite the reactivity system using ES 2015 proxies. So this will bring a lot of both performance and internal architecture improvements, but we will. So the plan is, but we are able to keep the API over 90% consistent with the current branch, and there will be really, really minor breaking changes, but most developers should be able to just migrate over seamlessly if they can drop support for older browsers.
Thank you so much for allowing us to speak to you today, and we're looking forward to an awesome conference. Thank you, Igor, for this unbelievable work that you've been doing over months and months. Igor's a full-time student as well, so much love and many kudos, and thank you so much.
All right, before we wrap up here, I do want to let you in on a few exciting developments we have in the works in the coming weeks. First is NativeScript 4.0. This next major release of NativeScript enables a much more flexible composition of your UI. This makes it really easy to have a proper tab view and side drawer in your app and really minimizes code duplication. There are also big changes with image decoding on Android, which I know has been a pain for some of you who create these really image-intensive apps. And expect general Angular and Webpack improvements as well. I don't want to spoil the party here. We have a lot of 4.0 related goodies to share in the coming weeks. I'm also happy to announce that soon we will have a library of code samples or app building blocks to share with you. These are all going to run in the NativeScript playground, making it super easy for you to see how they work and copy and paste the code into your own plain JavaScript, Angular, or Vue app. We also have big Sidekick updates coming in May, along with the much anticipated release of the Visual Studio extension for Sidekick. Now, if there are any Visual Studio users out there, you'll be happy to know you can tap into the cloud-based capabilities of Sidekick from within your favorite IDE. Okay, finally, I'm sorry, I do have a bit of homework for you. I'm sorry, but it's pretty easy. Visit NativeScriptVue.org. This is where you'll find the most thorough documentation and tutorials for getting up and running. Expect constant improvement in these docs as we're getting a lot of help from a lot of folks here. Download NativeScript Sidekick today, right? Try out that enterprise auth template. Hopefully you'll find it beneficial. Do yourself a favor and check out the Progress Next conference at progress.com/next. And finally, just follow us on Twitter at NativeScript. Keep up on all the latest news. All right, one last time, thank you to all the speakers here today. If you have any follow-up questions after the webinar is over, you can track us all down on Twitter. And thank you for attending, especially. Enjoy NativeScript Vue and have a great rest of your day.